Hello friends, it's Greg here again on the Blue Feather Ephemera channel. I have an eBay store by the same name where I sell vintage magazine print advertising. Today we're going to look at 29 great ads that sold, and then we'll go behind the store's curtain. I'll show you the weekly numbers, and I'll show you the numbers in the context of the current quarter, and we'll compare that to last year. Let's get started. As I have in recent videos, I'm going to start with the newest ads and then we'll work back in time. This one starts 1998. That's one of the more recent publications that I've sourced ads from. This comes from George Magazine. In the detail of the ad here, you can see that this fashion designer is Charles Jourdan of Paris. And at the bottom, there's not a lot of information to go on. You can see here some of the cities and some of the retailers that carry this line of clothing. I do think it's interesting that it does have a website at the bottom, 1998. A lot of us didn't pay attention to websites back at that time. At least I know I still had dial up back during those years and didn't shop for anything online. But anyway, this ad sold for $14.77. Here we've got a 1979 car that didn't get a lot of respect. This ad ran in Motor Trend magazine, and Motor Trend was kind of like for gearheads. And so I can just imagine somebody reading Motor Trend magazine and coming upon this car ad here and maybe just rolling their eyes a little bit. The car is called Le Car, and it's by a French company called Renault. This is the Renault Le Car, and they made an agreement with American Motors that they produced some vehicles on assembly lines at Kenosha, Wisconsin, and I believe this car and maybe one or two other models were produced there. Now, rumor has it that when Yugo started selling cars in the U.S. in 1985, that there was a backdoor deal by Renault so that Renault drivers could have somebody to make fun of. That's just a rumor, but anyway, this Le Car is, I think it's funny, is the color of French's mustard here. But anyway, American Motors, that they ran a deal where they and Renault put cars out together up through the late 1980s. This ad right here sold for $14.77. We go back 10 more years to 1969, and this ad ran in Fortune magazine. It's talking about the North American Rockwell Sabreliner jet, and this is a company based in St. Louis, Missouri. And when you look at the details of the ad, it's showing this foul weather. There's slush on the runway, and it's talking about the safety of this aircraft landing in conditions like that. It says at touchdown you're doing 110 miles an hour on slush, so the brakes won't help much and the runway's running out. And it's showing in the picture here that this aircraft right on the back of the engine there has a thrust reverser deployed, and basically that just directs the thrust of the engine forward to help slow the jet. New technology back during the 1960s. I sold this ad for $16.77. This ad dates to 1967. It's Salem menthol cigarettes, and this couple is enjoying a smoke on a swinging bridge. Now, I've got a quick swinging bridge story to tell. I was about 15, and about four of us from the neighborhood went fishing off of a swinging bridge at night. And you're roughly about 40, 60 feet above the river, and they call them swinging bridges for a reason. A couple of us got to goofing around and bouncing on the swinging bridge, and we had that thing going probably about anywhere from 8, 10, I don't know, 15 feet, something like that. And well, I didn't know one of the boys was packing heat, and he did not want to swing, and he drew and threatened to shoot us, and so we stopped. But anyway, I made it through that fishing trip. Didn't go fishing with him again after that for a long time. I sold this ad for $16.77. From 1965, we go back to the North American Sabreliner business jet. this St. Louis company, this ad, also from Fortune magazine, went to the same buyer. And what it shows here is another one of these jets. It doesn't mention specifically the thrust reversers, but it does talk about its short runway capability for takeoff and landing. And I don't know if that's attributable to thrust reversers or not, since it's not mentioned in this ad. But it says that it gives you a 15 to 20% greater uh, improvement in takeoff and landing runway requirements. And it goes on down through here to talk about the warranty period and all of that kind of stuff. If you're looking for a jet for your business, I sold this ad for $18.77. Also from 1965 is the ad for Brown Shoe Company of St. Louis. This is a naturalizer, and it says this is a no-slip pump. And when you look at the details, apparently slippage was a thing back in the day. This lady is pondering, and she says, if only I could find a pump that didn't slip. This naturalizer is called the Shoe with the Beautiful Fit. There's a closer look at it here. And I sold this ad for $16.77. Here's a 1965 ad for Winston cigarettes, and there's a marching band couple here. At least he's in the band. His lady is trying on his hat here, and it says, "Pardon us for drumming it in," and it shows the big drum that the fellow beats there. Maybe a rainy day for a parade, because there's an umbrella there too. I sold this ad for $13.77. This 1963 ad, another St. Louis company, this one called the Wohl Shoe Company, Wohl. I have no idea how to pronounce it, but I said Wohl. The shoe is Lark's streamlined boots. These look like little elf shoes here. I think they're kind of cute. Down at the bottom, it says Lark's, the shoe that puts fun at your feet. I sold this ad for $16.77. Here's a 1963 advertisement for some technology that we really don't talk about anymore either. This is Teletype Corporation based in Skokie, Illinois. And basically, you're talking about machines talking to each other. And it says, as this lady types out her purchase order, it's being copied by a similar machine in Atlanta. And you could have one other terminal of a teletype, or you could have dozens. And I think it turned into hundreds over time. But anyway, this ad sold for $13.77. Another 1963 ad. This is another St. Louis company, and I don't think I mentioned it before either. The St. Louis customer picked up, I believe, altogether a dozen ads, and the cigarette ads are all going to one customer as well. I think there's 6 of those total. This company is Fiancés, and they made a type of shoe here. In the detail, it says that top model Susan Van Wyck makes up to all her fiancés, and in the pictures, it's showing her color coordinate her makeup with her shoe color. And I sold this ad here for $14.77. This is a 1958 advertisement from New Yorker magazine, and the product here is called Lily of the Valley. It's a perfume by a company called Caron. Caron is how that's spelled. I think I pronounced it correctly. And I sold this for $18.77. Here's a small 1957 advertisement from a magazine called Motor, not Motor Trend or anything like this, Motor. And the advertiser is Bear Manufacturing, a company in Rock Island, Illinois. And what they're selling here are the tools or appliances necessary for doing wheel alignments. And it says that for just a small investment, they can make hundreds of dollars of additional profit per year, no matter what the size of your operation. And this small ad I sold for $9.77. This ad from 1952 ran in Saturday Evening Post, and in the details it says Acme Boot Company makes men's and ladies' boots, and they also have boots for children. You can see the various styles in the pictures here. The company based in Clarksville, Tennessee. I sold this ad for $16.77. This 1950 ad ran in American Home Magazine. The company is called Mako Incorporated. They were based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and the product is called Hear Rings. And basically, it's just a discrete sound amplifier that's worn like earrings, and that way you can have help with your hearing. It's a small ad. It's roughly 2 3/4 inches by 5 inches, and I sold this for $9.77. This is a 1947 advertisement for GE Natural Color Tone radios, and it's radios with a plastic case. This is the Model 50 here, and they show a few different models in the advertisement. And you can see that these plastic cases have that sort of aerodynamic, futuristic look that it's the same design style that brought us all of the rocket look of the 1950s and tail fins on the cars and things like that. This actress here is Maria Montez. It says that she's starring in a new United Artists movie called Atlantis, and that's one I've never seen. I may go look that up. I sold this ad for $14.77. Way back in the day when I started reviewing advertisements on my YouTube channel, the channel was brand new. I was making my first video, and the first ad that I ever reviewed back in video 1 was a Ralston Purina Company cereal advertisement. Also had an actress on it. This actress here is Kay Christopher, and it says that she's starring in a movie called Honeymoon. Now, I sold this ad for $18.77. This company is based in St. Louis, so it's going to that same customer that bought several ads. And this is 2 advertisements in a row with celebrity endorsements. And I did a video well over a year ago talking about celebrity endorsements in advertising. And I think I'll link that video to the top of this page here if you want to go back and look at that video. Once again, $18.77. Here's a 1946 advertisement from the Quartermaster Review, and this one is for Burma Shave. It says there's no reconversion problem here. That's a reference to men returning from military service being discharged after World War II. And as you can see, he's back together with his hometown gal. I sold this ad for $11.77. This is a 1946 statement of condition for Central Hanover Bank and Trust Company of New York, and this ran in Time magazine. Now, this is a little bit out of the ordinary because what you see on this statement of condition, they also list the trustees, but they have assets and liabilities of the bank, plus the holdings for U.S. government securities mentioned right here. Now, why it's out of the ordinary, they were required by law to run these in local newspapers, publications in the hometown. Time magazine being a nationwide national publication, it wasn't a requirement that the bank run it in a publication like Time. And so I guess they just did that because they want to show that they have nothing to hide. It's all about transparency. This is as of December the 31st, 1945. I sold this for $16.77. This is a 1946 advertisement for Bell Telephone System. The ad focuses on their customer service representatives, and it points out that this girl right here, an office worker, she deserves a citation. You know, coming out of the war years, everybody was getting citations for service and efficiency and productivity and all that kind of stuff. And they believe that their service representatives deserve citations as well. I sold this for $16.77. This 1944 war era advertisement is talking about limited wartime availability. It says, like so many other worthwhile products, Budweiser may not be available every time you call for it. And it says it remains popular because only Budweiser tastes like Budweiser, the world's most popular beer. And I sold this ad for $18.77. Next is a 1944 advertisement. This one from a company called Rye Crisp. It's also based in St. Louis, and it shows this cartoon. I believe that you might be able to make out the artist's name, Helen Hickinson or Hawkinson, something like that. But it shows this lady. She's taking a look at her caboose, and it says, "Just looking won't take it off. Better reduce the Rye Crisp way." So this is a sort of a diet cracker that's made to take the place of bread during meals. It says you can eat regular food and substitute Rye Crisp. And it's a small ad. This one's roughly 5 inches by 7 inches. And I sold it for $9.77. Another St. Louis ad, and also another one from Esquire Magazine, 1944. This one shows Clark Party aprons, and in the detail, there's this company called the WLM Clark Incorporated, and it says, "Be the life of the party, presto." This fellow puts on an apron, and he's the life of the party. He's obviously grilling. It mentions that they have just the right thing for bartenders as well. Funny things printed on the apron here. It's a small ad as well, less than 7 inches high, so that packed into 5 by 7 packing materials. And another one I sold for $9.77. This is a full page ad from the Quartermaster Review, 1943, and the product is Dye and Shine Liquid Shoe Polish. And the top of the page is a cartoon. And this guy says, "The officer of the day got tough, and I get KP. Wish we had some good officers in this outfit." And the other guy says, "Listen, bud, you're talking about my platoon lieutenant, not a better officer in the whole division." And the guy back here shining his shoes says, "Hey, Butch, tell him Lieutenant Smith was the guy who got the Dye and Shine put in the PX." So obviously he's a good guy if he gets the Dye and Shine put into the PX. And this ad sold for $16.77. Also in 1943, we've got another Rye Crisp ad. The last one was 44, and this one is in 43. This one ran in a different magazine. This was in Cosmopolitan. The St. Louis company made those Rye Crisp diet snack crackers, I guess you'd call them. But it's a cracker that you substitute for bread in meals. And in this is a funny cartoon here. This lady has a big old umbrella, but it's still not big enough to keep the rain off of her derriere. And the thin lady says she ought to try the Rye Crisp plan. This is bigger than the one we looked at before. This is 2/3 of a magazine page, and I sold this one for $14.77. In last week's video, we had a reference to the 30 Years' War from 1618 to 1648. Here is another one, sorta. Now, this comes from the World War II period, 1943. This ran in Esquire magazine. In the details here, it says, "Winning the war is all that matters," and it has the winged V, V for victory, and it says regal cravats. And I had to look up how to pronounce cravats because I feel like that if you say that word, you lose a couple of man points. But the company is Frank and Mayer Neckwear Company of St. Louis. This is another one of those St. Louis ads. The word cravats comes from the French, and it was the French who coined the word during the 30 Years' War. They fought sometimes with and sometimes against Croatians who wore neckwear that they called Croats, and that's where the word cravat comes from. I sold this ad for $9.77. 1941 was a different day and time, and this ad illustrates that. It's Lucky Strike cigarettes, and that's a product made by the American Tobacco Company. In the detail of this advertisement, it shows this fella here named F.H. Lewis. It says he's looking over fine tobacco before aging, and it says that he is a warehouseman of Stoneville, North Carolina. Now, when I say it's a different day and time or day and age, however you want to put it, they pretend the lady in this ad doesn't exist, but we all know why she's there. She's a pretty girl, and that goes a long way in advertising. This ad sold for $18.77. This 1941 advertisement is for a company called Cutler Hammer, and it's about the salmon run in Alaska at a place called Bristol Bay. They're showing an image here of a cannery, and it's a really well done illustration here. You can see that just the action in this picture really conveys the urgency of the work, and that urgency is what this advertisement is about, because the salmon run, which typically lasted about 19 to 20 days, according to the article here, they had to, in that time, work fast enough and hard enough and reliably enough in order to recoup millions of dollars of investments in the cannery supplies and equipment and all of the work that was being done. And so the Cutler Hammer motor control, all of the electrical internals of the equipment is what this ad's all about. I sold this ad for $21.77, and it went back to Alaska. Going on back now to 1932, this is a beautiful advertisement here for the Sterling Engine Company of Buffalo, New York. And in this ad, the detail shows the various products that they power. It says engines by Sterling Power. It shows a fast yacht here, gigantic trucks, motor rail cars, buses, and this bus that's shown in the picture is one of those double-decker tour buses. Here it shows a bridge. Now this is interesting because basically the road section of the bridge is lifted by Sterling engines here. And I think bridge technology is just kind of fascinating because I've seen these bridges that make way for ships. Some raise and lower, some are like drawbridge type, and I've been across a few of those. I saw one, I think in Nebraska, that actually pivoted or rotated. Uh, it was interesting as well. And then pumps and generators here. The company, once again, Buffalo, New York. And as you can see, as I go back in time, these full page ads have gained more value. Again, this one, $21.77. This is the last cell to show you today, and it's also the oldest one, going back to 1930. This one is not an advertisement. This is non-advertising content, which I do also sell in my store. This came from a magazine called Fortune, 1930. What you see on the page here is an article called Yachts for the Race, and it's talking about defending America's Cup. But I think the coolest thing that you see, and what probably sold this ad, are these private signals, they're called. These personal flags of yacht owners. These are, in many cases, a lot of famous people. I guess they were all famous back in 1930, but you've got Vanderbilts and Astors. And when you go on over, pages 2 and 3 are actually talking about or showing pictures of making sails for the ships and things like that. But then you get over to these pages and it shows more of these personal signals, and you've got more famous people there. J.P. Morgan, for example, is the red one with the crescent and star here. Cornelius Vanderbilt is the blue cross pennant. Here's another Morgan. I guess that's probably somebody related to J.P. Morgan, considering it's the same crescent and star, just a different color. You've got the Lipton flag here. I guess that's the fellow of Lipton tea fame. Let's look at some more of these because I think they're pretty interesting. I'm not seeing familiar names, but cool flags that you see here. Now, something to be careful of, and I always say this, when you're selling this non-advertising content of multiple pages or any advertisement of multiple pages, I think it's a good idea to explain to the buyer how they're going to be displayed. And in the item description here, I've said that this is 5 full pages on 3 sheets, separated and printed on the front and back. And I've laid them out so they can see which pages go together in the photos. I sold this for $34.77. Now we're going to go inside the store and look at the sales data for week 8. This is the fourth quarter of 2025, week 8. Total sales volume, I sold 29 ads, and the gross revenue $484. Now, to the right of that, a couple of spaces, over there where it says selling costs, $176.56. What you don't see there is the cost of my packing materials, and that runs about $1.50 per ad. And so when you figure out the cost of shipping 29 ads, my selling cost was about $43. And so that net sales profit in the blue box is actually $43 lower. So it came out to about $242 a net profit for this week. There's a lot to take in on this screen, so bear with me just a minute. But last week, we're comparing the current week to last week, and last week's numbers are in the boxes that I've overlaid on the page. Last week, my gross sales were $438 on 22 ads. But when you go over to the right, selling costs were actually higher last week, even though I sold fewer ads. And the reason is, during this week, I had 2 orders of multiple ads. One, I think, had 6 of those cigarette ads in it, and the ads for St. Louis, there was 12 of those that were shipped in one shipment. And so that's why selling costs were down. I paid less postage, and it also cost me considerably less in packing materials as well. And that results in what you see in the blue box. My net profit was up about $68, and that's even though my average sales price was down by more than $3 per ad. When we compare the current week with the same period of last year, week 8 of 2024, fourth quarter, we can see quite a different picture though. Last year, during that week, I only sold 6 ads, and the average sales price was certainly quite a bit better at $21.55, but the total sales revenue was only $129, and after you disregard the packing materials, I only made $51 profit that week. And remember, this year the profit was $242. This is what my entire fourth quarter of 2025 looks like. This is from October the 1st through November the 25th, all 8 weeks. My gross sales revenue, $4,083, and I've sold 203 items with an average sales price of $20.12. I love seeing the average sales price above $20. Now, for the net sales revenue in the blue box, once again, you've got to discount packing materials, but that means that my actual net profit is $1,775. That works out to about $221 per week, and I consider that pretty good. I'd like to get it above $250 a week so that I can gross more than $1,000 a month to supplement my retirement. That's my near, I guess you'd call, short-term goal. The end of each video in this series is my favorite part because this is the comparison that shows us the clearest picture with more data. And this is the entire fourth quarter to date of 25 compared to the same period of time last year. We're looking at all 8 weeks. So during all 8 weeks of the fourth quarter of 24, I had $2,481 of gross revenue based on 129 sales. And my average sales price was about $1 lower, but my flat rate shipping charge was $1 lower last year. So the average sales price is actually on par. When you go over to the blue box, the net sales, the profit that you see there, you got to take into account packing materials. When you do that, last year my net profit was $994, which averaged about $124 per week. Now, this year, it's about $100 higher, and I wish it was double. It's not quite there, but it's close, and I think it improves for the remainder of the quarter. I'm eager to see. Well, I hope you're eager to see as well, and so I'm going to give you a little bit of a teaser here. From the end of this video, November the 25th, up through the end of the year, I've got 144, a full gross of great advertisements to show you, during those 5 weeks. So if you want to see it, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button on this one if you don't care. And best of all, leave me a message. I'd love to hear from you, even if it's just a friendly hello. Bye for now.